Alright guys, I hope you're all doing well, and welcome to this Conquest Showdown. It's going to be myself with the Chaos Dwarfs facing off against the Sons of Sigmar, and we have a pretty well-rounded army here. Now, as far as the build goes in the front line, you're going to want to armor check the Empire. The Empire usually will lose pretty much all of the infantry engagements here, unless they bring in great swords, in which case they can beat your Chaos Dwarf warriors. But if you throw these bad boys up against spearmen, swordsmen, whatever, they're going to be able to tank them down and trade really, really well. So Chaos Dwarf warriors into the sunset, as many as we can bring. And this is something I just wanted to try out. We do have Hobgoblin archers. I figured if there's handgunners, Null and Ironsides, maybe some sort of skirmishers, for example, like grenade launchers, having a couple Hobgoblins in the secondary line could be useful. And they can also threaten Empire archers as well. So there are going to be 3 of those. And you'll notice that I do not have some of the very popular Chaos Dwarf artillery. Now, against the Empire, against Dwarves, Grand Cathay, typically you don't want to bring any of the Chaos Dwarf artillery unless there's a position, maybe, like over here, you could hide a Death Streak rocket launcher and it could shoot up and over, because any faction with, typical cannons is just going to wreck your artillery. Cannons destroy Death Streaks, they annihilate magma cannons because magma cannons have less range. So at the end of the day, you just kind of want to do more rush-centered strategies and try and march them down with your armor and, some of your powerful characters and mobility, which is what Chaos Dwarves do well. So we do have a couple Bull Centaur renders, and in this matchup I like to go with the shielded variant. I do find I run into War Wagon sometimes, occasionally Pistoliers, Huntsmen, whatever. So having the Bull Centaur renders with the shields I think is pretty cost effective. They do also have very high melee defense, and you don't really need the great weapon for Bull Centaur renders to be able to defeat like Empire Knights and Reichsguard and things like that. And honestly, even with the hand weapon and shield, they're probably going to do pretty good into like Demogryph Knights with Halberds. So that's going to be the core front line of Chowie Warriors. Secondary line is going to be Hobgoblin Archers, double Bull Centaur render with shield. We do have some mobility flanking around the back. The Spear Riders, a couple Skirmishers of our own via the Hobgoblin Wolf Rider bows. Very, very solid unit. You can use them to chase down routing units, poke into your opponent's artillery if they have like a cannon back here. Just great utility from those. Now we have Astragoth as well. I think he's the way to go. The big expensive character, the Bale Taurus, is like meta in probably 70-80% of matchups. But against the Empire, they have access to nets. They have really good sniping against big targets. Astragoth is a really small target. He's a powerful fighter. He can take on things like steam tanks and land ships, also going after the Empire characters. And he's got some decent magic. I do like Flamestorm quite a bit. I feel like it's pretty cost effective. So for my opponent's build here, he's got a front line of State Troopers backed up by the Huntsman, and the backfield's going to be triple Empire Knight. So his build's pretty good. It's solid. You have the Huntsman to help deal with any of my big monster threats, whether it be one of my trains or the Bull Centaur renders or a Bale Taurus. He does have the dreaded steam tanks, which are insanely powerful to run over my troops and provide a little bit of fire support. And, Spear State Troopers, what's not to love? It's a classic Empire army with Marcus Wolfheart and a Life Wizard coming into party. So if you're going to go with a steam tank or a land ship, having a Life Wizard is just so cost effective. It's very, very good. So Marcus is going to be poking. I do discover him. And Astragoth is going to be waiting in the bushes to try to get in position here to get my Chaos Dwarf warriors engaged. Objective will be opening up here in about 13 seconds. So that is when the party is going to get started. Granted, I don't really pay too much attention to the objective unless like the fighting is, getting a little bit wild. Maybe my opponent's sitting back, but I will be trying to grab it at some point. Maybe just throw some like archers on it or probably catch it by accident, to be honest. So I do make a big blunder over here. My opponent does catch me out. I tried to dive into his lines. I was seeing if I could slip in there, but he was paying attention. I thought he was microing on this side, but he does catch me there, so very well played to him. The Empire Knights were able to screen out my guys, and on this side I tried to bait him in as well. I was hoping I'd be able to lure him in a little bit further and then countercharge with the Bull Centaur renders, but we will see how that all unfurls. Now in the front line, the main line fighting is going to be beginning. The Chaos Dwarf Warriors obviously will beat a State Trooper Swordsman very decisively in combat, but not if a giant steam tank is going to be running through them. It's a little bit dodgy, and it looks like there is going to be a terror route going down, and I was pretty shocked. I was like, God damn, that steam tank did some serious work. But the Chowie Warriors have engaged on pretty much every other front and are going to start grinding down the State Troopers, and we're hoping that we can get our value back from those terror routes. That is for sure. So far my opponent playing very, very well defensively. Going to be getting a screaming charge here with the Empire Knights right into the flank of those Chaos Dwarf Warriors. So big casualties coming in. And the Gatling gun tank is very, very good at killing infantry. In the meantime, my Hobgoblin Archers have snuck up on his Huntsman, so that was pretty cost effective for me. We are able to punish the Huntsman with the volley fire coming in from the Hobgoblins, and here some State Troopers are pushing into my secondary line, at which point we're going to be using the Wolf Riders with Spears to get the Cowardly Despoilers, the rear charge, which is going to be giving them a bonus, so they do get in there, and it should be able to punish these swordsmen pretty hard. In the meantime, Astragoth with a big Flamestorm in the backfield, that is going to be melting one of the Huntsman units, and certainly felt very, very good. So Bull Centaurs have engaged. Spearmen were broken by the Chowie Warriors. Now we have Bull Centaurs against Empire Knights, which is very, very cost effective for us. Extremely durable. They, of course, have super high melee defense against the very low melee attack of the Empire Knights who didn't quite get a proper charge. And at the end of the day, this fight here is going to be pretty cost effective for us. And Chowie Warriors also can grind down Empire Knights. Like I said, Empire Knights are pretty much of a roadblock unit. They're not super killy. They can kill your goblins and wolf riders effectively, but against the warrior line, they are going to be struggling a little bit. So continuing to advance up, the objective is in our clutches, so if the game does go for another 8.5 minutes, that's going to be a victory for us. Granted, most land battle games don't go that long. And here we have our archer position. 1, 2, 3 hobgoblin archers are getting ready to form ranks and start shooting into whatever they can. A multitude of good targets, that's for sure. But here you can see the Chaos Dwarf warriors trading pretty well into the Sigmar Suns. Much more expensive unit if memory serves. I can't quite remember. I think Sigmar Suns are a little bit pricier than a Chaos Dwarf warrior. And to the backfield, we're using our cowardly despoilers to try and chase down the huntsman wherever we can. And the battle's looking pretty even overall. My opponent may be a little bit ahead on the bounce power here. Does get a very nice net on those Bull Centaur renders. And here the meme tank is just causing problems. It's shooting its Gatling gun and causing terror routes and definitely being very, very disruptive. A couple of those goblin wolf archers there do get mowed down. But the big thing that's going for me is the sustainability of my warriors. They are grinding pretty well. We have all 3 of our archers online, going to be using them on the spears. And the Bull Centaur renders here are going to be trying to chase down these spearmen while a massive firestorm goes down from Astragoth. I do like that ability. He doesn't have the best spells in the world, but that spell is very, very good. Flamestorm is pretty cheap. I think it's like 13 wins magic and can kind of instantly delete units if it gets like a decent spin. We do break some of the spearmen, which is going to be opening the floodgates. You can see we're trying to penetrate into the secondary here using the hobgoblin spear riders to move after the huntsman, and using the Bull Centaur renders, and I feel like the shields have been paying pretty huge dividends here. We've been getting shot by huntsmen quite a bit over the course of this game, and having the shields I think is very, very nice, and you can see they don't really have a problem dominating the cavalry. The great weapons I do think in matchups against like chaos-centric factions that aren't really going to be punishing them with ranged, and they are exclusively going to be facing large things perhaps, like maybe Plague Chodes of Nurgle, or in Tzeentch. I mean, Tzeentch probably doesn't have too many things for Bull Centaur renders to fight, but yeah, another day. So here we do have the hobgoblins moving in. Astragoth being infantry sized here is quite nice. Makes him very, very durable against some of the spear units, and he does help get the route when we sandwich in on the spearmen here. Marcus Wolfhart, I saw him poking me over here and causing a little bit of havoc. So we are going to be using the hobgoblin spear riders, and this is really good anytime you see like a foot character like this, especially a Marcus type character, a Lithanar. Just surround them with like a cheap, crappy unit. He doesn't really have good splash attacks, so it takes him like 10 years to get out of these units, and honestly, they're going to do some very respectable damage against him. So it's basically just shutting down my opponent's lord for a prolonged period of time. But the big scary thing here is the meme tank, right? It's not like domination mode where you can just kind of ignore it and still win on objectives. It is something that I am going to have to deal with eventually, right? So here it's continuing to chase down my Chaos Dwarf warriors, and this is a good play for my opponent. It's going to be punishing these Chowie, which will allow these swordsmen as well as huntsmen maybe to come back online here. And these Bull Centaurs are just going to be creeping about, chasing down these Empire Knights, but more importantly, looking to line up a charge here on the steam tank. As you can see, the attack order was given. There's a regrowth on the tank. That's going to be a big balance of power shift for my opponent. I certainly do have the numbers advantage on him. We got the Hobgoblin Archers here, 3 units in total, who are all pretty healthy and can, form ranks and start shooting at these spearmen and waste them pretty quickly. The Bull Centaur renders chasing down these Empire Knights, which are trying to push to my archer line. And Astragoth, I saw the goodies over here. We saw Marcus Wolfhart a little bit isolated. Astragoth is an extremely good assassin character, especially if you bring the Black Hammer of Hashut, which I think is an auto-take item. I think it's very, very good. Not the Stone Mantle. This one's great too. It does give him Phys Res, which is always quite useful. But the Black Hammer of Hashut, which is around here somewhere. I'm pretty sure I did bring it. Yes, there it is. So it gives, he makes the target flammable, which of course he does fire damage, so that's already going to be a 22% buff, and massively increases his damage by essentially 50%. So if you can get him on a target and really bonk him on the head and, add Kindle Flame to that, man oh man, he can karate chop people pretty hard. Balance of power is pretty even. I do feel like I have a slight advantage of the game at this point. On the other side, we do have a couple of goblins trying to chase down these huntsmen here, but my opponent doing a good job screening out with swordsmen, causing some havoc. Here the Chowie warriors have returned, so good to be giving them an order whenever I can. And we still have a lot of really healthy Chaos Dwarf warriors. We got 54 right here, 94 right here. The steam tank, of course, is a little bit problematic and can cause some havoc for my infantry, but the Bull Centaurs are more than up to the task of taking this thing on. They hit incredibly hard, have really good AP value, and steam tanks have low melee defense, so they're going to be able to connect. Now, what I should have done in retrospect, the way that I engaged them, I should have moved past the steam tank and then given an attack order, but my opponent can counterplay that by just moving constantly, so it won't let me get a full surround, which is a really, really good idea. But Astragoth's going to be taking Marcus Wolfhart to Pound Town super hard. The Hammer of Hashut, 720 weapon strength. That is pretty insane for this little dwarf character. And yeah, you can see Marcus Wolfhart having a really bad time. He just got bonked on the head super hard by Astragoth. He just got deleted. He was like 20%. And from there, my opponent does tap out. Astragoth would be able to easily solo the steam tank, and there's still 2 units of Bull Centaur renders, 3 archers over here, all of whom could kill that steam tank very effectively. So GG, well played. I had a relatively tough start to that game. It didn't feel super great. You know, he baited out a couple of my charges and counterpunched me a little bit. Was able to wreck a couple of my infantry positions, but overall the Bull Centaur renders were very durable. The Hobgoblin archers were kind of sleeper MVPs. They really melted the Huntsman and gave me good utility against a lot of his squishy, you know, State Trooper core. Astragoth was great, Flamestorms were on point, and overall I did like the build. I think this is kind of the style of play you need to do against Empire and Conquest, and probably, you know, the thing is there is a big difference between Domination and Conquest and Land Battle, but there's many things in the matchups that are very, you know, similar, right? Like if I were playing Chaos Dwarfs against Empire in, you know, Dawn mode, for example, I would probably just bring the Chaos Dwarf line, maybe 2 archers instead of 3, and a Bull Centaur render, right? So it would just be a little bit smaller with the rest of the army being in reinforcement. So very, very similar stuff, right? But I think the one thing that does shine a little bit more in land battle is probably SE. Like SEs are good in domination mode for sure. Like Cavalry War Sphinxes are, you know, really, really dominant in the meta right now. You know, steam tanks and land chips are super good, but I do think in land battle they could be a little bit more threatening because it's not something you can ignore as much. There will come a time potentially where you have to deal with these SEs, and if you don't have the right tools to deal with it, you just lose the game, right? So that's a bit of a different tool where you really need to be kitted into dealing with those type of threats in this format. But yeah, Marcus was not bad. He's good at kind of poking. Like ideally, if I had gone for the more traditional Bellator's character, his build would have worked a little bit better, right? He could have snared me down, poked him, you know, focused me with the steam tank a little bit. But I think the wider build and the fact that my warrior line was so much stronger than his infantry core, I was able to really push in and cause a lot of pressure all over the battlefield. And the Empire Knights didn't have much killing power here. Bull Centaurs were able to counter them pretty well. But that's it. GG, well played. You guys take care of yourselves, and we'll be back with more domination as well as conquest battles here in the next few days. Cheers.